So what happened was there was this Genius Act, the stablecoin bill regulation. Now there was this push from the banks and the community banks saying, our deposits are going to dry up, therefore we need to have a prohibition on interest-bearing stablecoins. So that deal was done for the Genius Act. Fast forward to now, the market structure bill sits in the Senate. And the banks over the August recess said, you know what? You have to open up the Genius Act that we endorsed 2 months ago, that passed already, and ban affiliates, so like reward programs on Coinbase, as well as brokers and dealers from offering interest-bearing stablecoin products. They're a very well-funded industry, and they have a lot of money to play with. So is the crypto industry, and it's going to be a really, candidly, a fight of the juggernauts in DC for these next couple of weeks.
This episode is brought to you by Trezor. Trezor makes beautifully crafted hardware wallets that allow you to easily and safely store your crypto assets. Trezor's been in the game for a very long time. Since 2013, they were the pioneers of hardware wallets and the seed phrase setup, and their hardware wallets are open source. In fact, my favorite is the Trezor Safe 5. It's a beautifully designed and easy to use hardware wallet, guys, and it's my go-to. And they support a variety of coins, all your top crypto tokens, your Bitcoins, your XRP, Ethereum, Solana, and much more. And even new coins, even BlackRock's BUIDL token. So they support coins on the institutional side where you have tokenization of different assets and much more. And they even offer a great service that helps you to get your Trezor device set up. You get one-on-one customer support from their team, so you can check that out as well. So once again, I'm a big fan of this hardware wallet. So if you'd like to learn more, visit the link in the description. Hey everybody, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and we're recording at Station 3 in New York's Financial District. And my guest, who needs no introduction, but I will have to introduce him, it's Ron Hammond, who is the head of policy and advocacy at Wintermute. Ron, great to have you.
First time in studio. It's pretty crazy. And we've done so many of these, and now it's awesome to see how far you've grown and how much this operation has become. So congrats, and it's great to be in studio.
Thank you, man. I consider you a friend because we've spoken so many times, Ron. Maybe over 30 interviews over the past 4 years. And yeah, like I said, really awesome to have doing this in person with you.
And no shortage of drama, so let's get into it.
Yeah. Well, you're no longer at the Blockchain Association. Tell us about Wintermute and your role there.
Yeah, definitely. So Wintermute is a prop trading firm. They're based out of the UK. They were, after the election, looking to get back into the United States. I brought the CEO when I was at the Blockchain Association, as well as the COO and a few others from the Wintermute team over to the White House. We had a lot of great meetings and talking about how Wintermute was eyeing coming back to the United States. And it was after that White House meeting with Yevgeny that they reached out saying, hey, we're looking to build a team, and we think it'd be great to have someone like you on board. And I was looking for a new challenge, and they wanted me to move up to New York, and decided to take them up on the challenge. And it's been really exciting. So I'm only 2.5 months in, 3 months in so far, but it's been a lot of travel DC. I also cover the UK, which has got a lot of policy developments as well that I'm getting into. But for me, it's been really exciting because I really want to be on the front lines of the TradFi versus crypto fight, because we all been talking about that's going to be happening. But now kind of on the front lines here. So it's us and a lot of folks in crypto. We're over in Soho, and they got a WeWork. Obviously, you're WeWork down here in FiDi.
Yeah.
Crypto's creeping in on Wall Street. It's pretty exciting to see, and I'm excited for this role. So it's a lot of the same that I was doing at Blockchain Association, but now for one individual company. But as a market maker, what's good for the market makers and liquidity providers is good for pretty much everyone in the ecosystem. So that's kind of the unique role we have, and I'm really excited to get more into it.
Wintermute, I've heard a lot about over the years. Are you guys the largest market maker in the crypto industry?
There's different metrics I've been saying. So some folks say that we are, I haven't seen the definitive stats on that stuff, but again, it depends on the volume and stuff like that. But overall, I would say we're probably one of the largest, if not the largest. So it's really exciting. That's, just coming from the UK and Singapore side. Right. And we just launched a whole New York office, and we're building that team. We're working on the licenses and the regulation, which is obviously my role here. Yeah. And so once that gets more into place, the growth is going to be exponential. So we're really excited. So it's kind of like a startup vibe right now in New York in our office of like 5 or 6 guys. And now we're really excited to be expanding as time goes on. And, it's only up from here.
That's exciting, man. And it's just, analogous of everything that's been going on with crypto with a more favorable environment. People are coming back to the United States looking to expand. They're no longer in fear. Like what it was over the past 4 years.
No, it's been crazy. And it's weird to think that New York is kind of like the epicenter of that. But we were just talking about, I was splitting time between Miami and DC last year. And in Miami, the scene was huge, especially in the 2021 to 2024 days. But I've seen a lot of exodus now going to New York because folks realize the TradFi fight's here. The institutional money is coming in, and this is the time to build, and this is the time to grind. And I've been seeing that all across, the ecosystem, but especially in New York. It's been really crazy to see how much Soho is full of fashion girlies and crypto bros. It's a very different, unique situation, but I'm here for it, and I'm excited for this next phase of crypto. This is gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, it feels like we're at the cusp or the start of a next economic boom powered by these new technologies like blockchain, crypto, AI, and so forth. But blockchain, crypto playing a big part of it. I mean, Ron, we've had how many companies go public, and we're down by Wall Street. Just last week, Gemini, Bitcoin, American Bitcoin yesterday. It's wild.
It's crazy. And to think we were on the ropes just a couple of years ago after FTX, but even before that with the ICO, bust, you could say, in 2018, there's been several times folks have put this industry out, and we're here and we're rocking and we're better than ever. And in some cases, the TradFi folks are getting a little, nervous now. So again, this is the next phase of the fight. Crypto's used to fights, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
So speaking of the TradFi fights, I think I saw Summer Mersinger's article this morning about banks are trying to push back on some of the Genius Act.
Yeah, so for folks who are unaware of what happened in DC, so what happened was there was this Genius Act, the stablecoin bill regulation. Now there was this push from the banks and the community banks saying our deposits, especially in rural banks and community banks, are going to dry up. Therefore, we have a prohibition on interest-bearing stablecoins. And that was the agreement to more the crypto industry saying, hey, we believe this is going to be a threat to our deposits. We disagreed, but in order to get a bill forward, there had to be the banks and crypto to be in some way aligned here. And so that was a deal struck in the Genius Act. Again, it wasn't the best for crypto, it wasn't the best for the banks, but overall, that's legislation. Not everyone's happy. So that deal was done for the Genius Act. Fast forward to now, the market structure bill. This is the last big crypto bill, at least on the docket right now. It sits in the Senate.
Sure.
And the banks over the August recess said, you know what? Our way to get us on board actually with the legislation is that you have to open up the Genius Act that we endorsed 2 months ago, that passed already. You have to open that back up and ban affiliates, so like reward programs on Coinbase, as well as brokers and dealers from offering interest-bearing stablecoin products. And that's the funny part is, A, didn't you endorse that legislation? But B, also, that bill's done. So it's kind of like, the upside with crypto policy, it's very transparent. So to the everyday person, you're like, yeah, this seems like a pretty flawed strategy here. But at least right now, that's where the banks are digging their heels in. And again, they're a very well-funded industry, and they have a lot of money to play with, and they have, in the past been very effective in DC. So, but so is the crypto industry, and it's going to be a really, candidly, a fight of the juggernauts in DC for these next couple of weeks. So we'll see what happens on that front. But overall, we're seeing now the banks, which we expected for years, kind of now stick their head up out of the water and say, yeah, we're not either ready for it yet, or we should put on the brakes here, or maybe we need to build a moat bigger for our competition so they don't really take our business away. But hey, guess what? That's the market. So,
Ron, sometimes I fire off on X a bit tongue in cheek, and I'll say, this is because of the banks. They're getting disrupted, and their actions are speaking louder than their words almost here, where you have the clarity. People are now moving to on-chain networks, right? Using stable coins, earning higher yield. Why do I keep my cash in the checking? I just move it over to Coinbase or whatever it is. It seems like they're trying to fight back, but in addition, they're also building their own blockchains and their own stable coins.
And that's the typical kind of lobbying playbook in DC is if you're not ready for something or a product, delay, or throw as many roadblocks as you can until your internal systems are built up, or make some acquisitions and then you're ready to go. And again, I don't want to say broadly it's all the banks here, who are universally opposed to interest-bearing stablecoins or the crypto industry. By no means. I was dealing with a lot of banks when I was working on legislation back in 2016 on more custody rules and stuff like that, like with BNY Mellon. So there's a lot of traditional banks and traditional players that want this kind of legislation.
Sure.
There's just some folks who want that moat building or maybe aren't ready yet. We've seen more of the trade associations for the banks, like American Bankers and Bank Policy Institute, stick their heads up versus individual banks. But I'm sure as the fight gets a little more aggressive in the next couple months, maybe we'll see individual banks more be taking the banter and saying, hey, we oppose this provision, or we think the moat should be bigger for banks. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to get pretty nuts pretty soon.
We'll see how that plays out. But to your point, the crypto industry, we're ready to fight. We fought over the past 4 years under Operation Choke Point 2.0 and much more.
Oh, yeah. And again, to say, there were a lot of banks, we got debanked, obviously, during the Silicon Valley Bank issue. A lot of folks, individuals and companies got deplatformed or debanked. But we did see a lot of banks, even some like JP Morgan, who were opposed publicly to banks, actually ended up banking a lot of the crypto industry that was debanked back in March of 2023.
Sure.
So it's kind of funny to see how this interplay of crypto and TradFi and the banks are happening. So we're allies in some cases, we're enemies in other cases. And that's just kind of the interesting weave we have with DC. But again, to the credit for everyone involved in the policy world, you can see a lot of this very publicly on Twitter and seeing kind of where the camps are and where their opinions are and make a decision for yourself. And that's where I think crypto has the advantage because A, I think we have the winning arguments, but B, also we're winning a lot of the votes here, and it's like 2/3 of Congress now. I mean, that's very rare for any issue to be 2/3 of Congress on any issue. But we have 2/3 of Congress supporting these bills, stablecoins and Clarity Act. The momentum's on the one side. It's not for the banks.
So speaking of Congress and the Clarity Act, we heard from White House crypto czar David Sachs, I think back in August, that come late September, the process will start. What can you tell us about the Clarity Act and where we're at right now?
Sure thing. So just to catch folks up, everything. So again, Genius Act done, stablecoins done. Now we have the Clarity Act. That's the big market structure bill that everyone's been talking about. Where's the SEC's line? Where's the CFTC's line? What's the cutsy rules and several other provisions that are really important just for markets to operate here in the United States and create those clear rules that companies like Wintermute very much need. We need to have those clear rules if we're going to operate in the bounds of the law, and we need to have the bounds of the law out there. So This is the big bill. It passed the House with over 2/3 of the House supporting it back in July. Huge margins. Again, huge margins. But the Senate, they decided to take up their own version. And we've seen a couple drafts come out so far. There was a draft that came out about 2 weeks ago, and it was from the Senate Bank Committee. And then the Senate Ag Committee, there's two committees involved who does more of the CFTC stuff. They're still working on their draft. But what it looks like we're having right now is that September 30th is what Senate Banking is telling folks publicly is that they want to have a markup or a vote in their committee. It's kind of step 1 or 2 of the 10-step process. But they want to have that vote and get the process moving September 30th. Now, they still have to have a vote in the Ag Committee. But at least for right now, the date to look at is September 30th, possibly. That depends if we have a shutdown. But we'll be seeing more Elizabeth Warren tee off against Tim Scott, Cynthia Lummis, Bill Hagerty, and several other pro-crypto senators on both sides of the aisle. And that's going to be the first step to see how much legs does this have. Again, it'll be a different bill than the Clarity Act. So that means that the House will have to eventually vote on whatever comes out of the Senate. So, and now we're seeing big established players like the banks kind of draw their hard lines. The crypto industry has drawn their hard lines where they want to support or not support. So it's going to get pretty nasty. And again, as we saw with the Genius Act, which is kind of considered the easier bill of these two, we saw the Credit Card Competition Act get in. So we had credit cards and interchange fees somehow get looped into this bill. We saw some dramas with central bank digital currencies come in and almost derail the entire bill itself. So, this is crypto and politics. There is no shortage of drama, and buckle up. I'm sure we're going to see a repeat of a lot of these instances and drama points very shortly.
I want to make sure I'm clear on something here with regards to that bill, because I know the Senate Democrats introduced a version. Were you saying that something else has to be voted in the House, or once it passes the Senate, it's going to the president?
If it's different than what the House passed, which is the Clarity Act, then the House has to have to vote on it as well. So they have to vote on the exact same piece of legislation. So we kind of saw that with the Genius Act, where the House had the Stable Act, Senate had Genius Act, and the Genius Act won out, and the House had to kind of stomach it and vote on the Senate version rather than their own version again. So that's kind of what we're seeing play out, at least right now. But there could be a situation where there's so much drama and politics involved that the Senate says, screw it, we'll just do the Clarity Act, and just like, if we vote out here, it doesn't have to go back to the House. But the problem is that the Senate, you're going to need a lot of Democrat support.
Yes.
And that's where you reference the 12 Democrats here. You have to get 60 votes in the Senate out of 100 people to advance this bill. And as we saw the Genius Act, it's not guaranteed you're going to get all the Republicans. We saw 2 drop off on that vote. And then, candidly, the Democrats are in a position of negotiating power here. So they've laid out their principles. One of them did include the prohibition on interest-bearing stablecoins. So I'm sure the banks are happy about that provision being included. By no means is that guaranteed that's going to be in the bill. But there was a laundry list of things that they want. And they understand that if to get the 60 votes, they're going to probably need at least 10, if not 11 of those 12 to come on board. So this is where the jockeying comes in politics, and a lot that's happening behind closed doors. So get ready. It's going to get exciting.
Do you think that Trump's family's businesses involved in crypto will be a roadblock? Because I know Elizabeth Warren is chomping on the bit to say, look, they're making a ton of money off of this. Do you think that might be a problem?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we've already seen that play out in the House already, where it was a dominating factor both in several market votes as well as just the debate on the House floor. But overall, actually compared to FIT 21, which is the market structure bill from 2 years ago the House voted on, even with all the Trump drama and the Trump involvement in crypto, we actually got more Democrats to support the bill this go around. So I think, it's a lot of noise more than anything. And it's kind of weird also, if you see DC media, you'll talk about how the Worley Financial netted the Trump family like $5 billion. But then if you look at more of the market media and financial media, you'll see more how Worley Financial tanked and it's been a flop entirely. So I think there's also information flows that different people are getting. But at the end of the day, at least I look at the House votes and say I'm optimistic. That being said, though, there was several points actually the Democrats raised in their 12 Democrats raised in their points on the conflict of interest with the Trump family. So I'm sure it'll be a dominating factor in a lot of debate in the Senate. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm kind of concerned about that part, Ron. So realistically, do you think this bill gets passed late October, or maybe it is November or till December before everybody goes on break?
I'd say Senator Lummis said at Salt, Wyoming, she's hoping to get it done before December. And I think that's actually a pretty realistic timeline. Again, even though we're having hypothetically a vote September 30th on half of the bill, we still got to wait for the other half of the bill to come out of Senate Agriculture. That's going to probably be till late October.
Okay.
And then you have Thanksgiving, you'll have the holidays, you have a lot of big bills that get done by the end of the year, including government funding. We're facing a shutdown. And if they avert the shutdown at the end of this month, they likely will kick the can to Thanksgiving or to Christmas. So we're going to have another shutdown fight happening then too. So there's going to be a lot of drama in the Senate, and time in the Senate is very valuable. So it all kind of depends of A, how they move through the committee for votes, how bipartisan, and then B, what's next. But then again, finally, after it passes the Senate, it's got to go back to the House. And you got to hope the House doesn't add anything, because otherwise the Senate has to vote on it again. So this could go back and forth for a while, and just kind of depends on who's going to stomach what. And from which camps. And again, all camps are involved here. So it's a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
So realistically, we should all set our calendar dates to maybe December before Christmas around.
That's more talking just more of my experience and being more realistic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm a lot more optimistic on market structure than I was 2 months ago, even a month ago.
Sure.
We'll see how these negotiations play out. But overall, we've seen a lot of DeFi protections that the industry was asking for. That got included in the latest draft. So at least right now, we've seen a lot more shoring up the crypto support. Will those protections remain? It remains to be seen over negotiations. But overall, it seems like, compared to other bills in the past, including the Clarity Act, we seem to have a united front of the crypto industry saying, hey, largely we're 95% good with this, that's pretty rare in crypto these days, in crypto politics, but it remains to be seen what the final product is.
Absolutely. Now, yesterday I saw Michael Saylor and a bunch of Bitcoin advocates were in DC trying to rally for the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Bill or getting that passed. Any updates there you can share?
We haven't seen too much updates on that front. We saw the White House report become a little mum on a lot of those details there.
Sure.
I think a lot of the focus still is on the Clarity Act as well as market structure and just getting that through. And we've seen the White House be more of to bolster the congressional efforts rather than trying to do their own thing or do their own initiatives, which has actually been pretty exciting to see. And then that's actually related to more of the SEC and CFTC working together as well. So I think the White House is being more of a coordinator rather than a force driving everything right now.
Sure.
But again, that's really good because we have some really experienced folks at the agencies and Congress leading this stuff. But more on the reserve itself, I think there's a lot of still questions and a lot of folks wondering, is this more of a Treasury play, a regulatory play, or is this a congressional play with Senator Lummis's Bitcoin Act? And so at least it's good to see advocates, pushing for that as well. But overall, I'd say for most of the industry, that bill is still pretty nascent in its days. You have to recall the market structure bill. I worked on a market structure bill back in 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And that version of that bill obviously has changed so much over time and it's added 200 pages plus. But that bill topic is still being debated to this day. So bills take a long time sometimes.
Sure.
And that is the frustrating part of Congress. It does take some while to build momentum. And that might be the hurdle right now for the Bitcoin Act. But it remains to be seen. It's gotten good support so far in the House and Senate.
I've been on record saying that I think it's a hard sell for Congress. Hey, let's go buy Bitcoin. It's easy to say, let's take the Bitcoin we've confiscated and start a reserve. But to go tell them, because where are you going to get the money? Maybe Trump has been talking about tariffs. I don't know if it's him or someone else, but maybe some of the tariff revenue. But still, I think it's a hard sell. Yeah,
it's more the optics. I think is the hardest part to overcome, especially for a lot of folks within the industry. And again, there's a divergence of opinions on more of monetarily wise, does this make sense for policy? But at the same time, there's also been openness from Senator Lummis as well as the administration saying, hey, look, we're open to finding budget neutral ways to make this work.
Sure.
We're looking for tweaks to make this better. So the upside is it's very much of an open dialogue and communication with the drafters as well as the folks in the administration and saying we're open to changing our mind here of how this works. And that's how good policy gets made. Unfortunately, it takes time. And for a lot of folks, I know that's frustrating, but that's the current situation.
Yeah, I feel like the market structure is the higher priority. Let's get that done. Then we'll work on Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin and things like that.
Exactly. We got plenty of issues coming up. And we even got tax issues, and that's going to be coming up probably in January as well. So Don't worry. Just because market structure gets done, fingers crossed, there's plenty of other issues that the industry still got in DC.
Yeah, the tax part is so big because people being able to spend their crypto would be great if they're not taxed at a certain threshold.
Yeah, the de minimis is huge. Mark to market is a huge one. Like-kind exchange is a huge question mark.
Sure.
Mining and staking rewards is another question. And actually, Patrick Witt over at the Blockchain Association last week, he was speaking to a whole group of folks in the policy realm, and he's saying that actually tax issues is something that's going to be next for them to look at. They're going to see what they can do without congressional approval, and they're going to see what they also need Congress to move forward on. And Congress is going to be working on another tax bill. So I think crypto tax issues are going to heat up pretty quickly. How much that will go forward remains to be seen. But the White House is exploring ways to do it without Congress. So we could see some clarity soon. Again, when it comes to timing, unclear, but market structure, to your point, is still a top priority. But don't worry, we got plenty of stuff to come up next.
Yeah. But the good thing is we're making progress, right?
Exactly.
Not perfection, progress, and that's important. Now, you mentioned, the SEC and the CFTC working together. We've been seeing some amazing activity coming out of the SEC and the CFTC, credit to Acting Chair Pham. What are your thoughts on how they've been collaborating and what's been the progress that's being made?
I mean, it's been pretty incredible so far, to say the least. I mean, this has been two agencies that in the past have really never communicated, and especially sometimes they've been, fighting each other. At least we saw with the Gensler Benham days.
Sure.
But right now it's been very much kumbaya, open arms here. Of course, a lot of that is thanks to the White House for getting these folks in the same room together.
Sure.
But at the same time, we've seen the SEC and CFTC say, hey, look, we're launching these, crypto sprints or Project Crypto. And they have been really heavily engaging with the industry. Caroline Pham, even though she's the last commissioner standing at the current moment, she has been out and about, making the rounds, at least with the industry, and hearing folks both abroad and domestically. So that's been really exciting to see on her end.
Sure.
And then at least with the SEC, I mean, we had a long call with them yesterday, actually. I'm sure we'll have a conversation with them, pretty soon again. But they've been very open, very transparent, very different than the past 4 years. And I'm very excited to see kind of what comes from the roadshow that they've been doing and publicly touting for the past couple of months. Because it seems like questions around tokenized securities, for example, there's a lot of question marks there.
Yes.
There's a lot of question marks on custody still. And it seems like the SEC is poised to do some rulemaking or maybe some exemptive relief or something to that effect pretty soon. But at least we know something's coming down the pipeline, according to all public statements from Commissioner Peirce as well as Paul Atkins. So the transparency is great. It's really exciting to see these engagements. And we'll see what comes from it. But one thing is for sure, folks in DC keep saying, I could not believe it's even busier now than it was 4 years ago. And it doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon.
It's exciting, man. It's just a breath of fresh air. I am a bit concerned about the CFTC. There's so many departures. Like you said, Commissioner Pham, the last standing person there. And then Brian Quintenz, his confirmation is being held up. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, there's a lot happening at the CFTC. It's kind of crazy. At least in DC, what we're seeing right now is that, Trump is the center of power here, and he controls everything from foreign powers, as well as, who potentially going to bomb next, to potentially who is the soybean regulator. And that is kind of unfortunately the situation we're at, that a lot of this is dependent on the president himself or his team. And even though Quintenz was up for a nomination and was about to go in front of the ad committee for his nomination vote, it got pulled at the last second. There's still a lot of questions why. There's been rumors that the Winklevoss twins have been involved. I saw the tweet that Quintenz did, and Brian's a good friend of mine. I think he's great at the agency. I think he was great when he was there previously, so it'd be good to have him back.
Yes.
Caroline Pham is doing as much as she can. She's doing a great job as well. But also, there's 4 other commission slots that need to be filled, and we haven't really seen, at least at this stage, those names being floated. And again, they had to be Republican names and Democrat names, so you have to balance out the agency.
Right.
So there's a lot of questions and concerns. But the last thing I'll say, and this is kind of the new territory of the CFTC, is we're seeing prediction markets and how much that's starting to take over the CFTC. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of noise. There was a lot of scrutiny in the last administration on folks like Kalshi and Polymarket. That's changed. But also there are incumbents like the Indian tribes, for example,
yes,
who have seemingly been kind of behind the scenes of a lot of the Quintenz nomination as well, according to some reports. So, as crypto grows, I think they've kind of realized, hey, there's other factions and traditional legacy systems that will fight you in DC, whether publicly or privately, and they are not going to go out without a fight. So we'll see what happens. But again, I'm always optimistic because we've been winning these fights and we've had a lot of them. So it's just another one to add to the book.
Absolutely. And I'm a big fan of Brian as well. I've had him on the podcast a couple of times over the years. He's very smart, understands the technology and the market. And they need to get him in, and we need to get these commissioners in. It feels like the skeleton crew's running CFTC, right?
Exactly. Hey, the upside though is the markets are operating, so it does show that even with the skinny, or staff, the agency is doing pretty well.
Sure.
Obviously, there's a lot of calls, especially in the market structure bill, to give them more resources.
Yeah.
So again, we'll see how that that operation works. But the fact that there's only one commissioner standing, it is a little concerning, and also the chairs not moving forward, at least right now, concerning as well. So fingers crossed, but yeah, that's definitely a top priority for hopefully the administration.
Yeah, man, I hope they get that resolved soon. Recently, actually I should say last week, Tether announced they're coming into the United States with a new regulated stablecoin, USAT. It will be headed up by Hines. What are your thoughts on that move?
I mean, I think it's a great move. Tether had a lot of question marks, and for years we were talking about this, about how there was questions for their reserves. Did they have Chinese commercial paper or not? There was questions where they were even located at or headquartered at. There was questions around their audits and attestations. And then finally, there was a lot of question of, are they going to be able to comply with the Genius Act? And it kind of seemed like probably not, but this is now like their way to, not say work around, but this is a way to actually come into compliance.
Sure.
So that's been exciting to see. It's exciting to see how, the views on Tether, especially in the industry, have really kind of done a 180 where it was, there's a lot more question marks. And then over time, they've really shown, hey, like we're more the international stablecoin. We're more the on-ramp to the dollar. We buy a lot of US Treasuries. And that was actually the argument that won a lot of the older senators over, was just that more the Treasury angle and there were, what Tether was doing on that front. So overall, I have to give them a lot of props on the lobbying front. They got themselves out of a lot of situations. And they're now at the White House at the Genius Act signing, which is crazy because a year ago, I don't think the Tether CEO would have stepped foot anywhere in the United States because there could have been folks after him. So it's been crazy to see that turnaround and that story, and we'll see what happens in the marketplace because the stablecoin wars they're definitely heating up, and especially here in New York, it's what all people are talking about.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, you got the banks looking to launch their own versions, and you got, I just had Charles Cascarilla at Paxos, and he's talking about the global dollar network, and that has so many participants. That seems like a 800-pound gorilla that's coming. And I'm like, wow, I'm curious how this is going to play out.
It's crazy. And, the Genius Act is still like now the implementation on the regulatory phase is starting, but we're seeing some companies come out and say like, we are a Genius compliant stablecoin. Yeah. And it's even weird, like how Genius now is kind of like mainstream, like in just the vernacular, especially in finance, but like everyone knows the Genius Act. And it's kind of funny because like I used to be one of the staffers who used to write the acronyms for bill names. And I knew the one who did the Genius Act. And it's funny to think of like how that is now like in the vernacular of everything in finance. It's just the Genius Act as it is. So it's great to see. We'll hopefully have clarity or some version of that next. I hope they come with a good name, and we'll hopefully see that kind of boom, at least with the alts or other parts of the market, if we get this clarity more in the SEC and CFTC from Congress. Sure.
Jumping back to Tether and this new stablecoin, because you already have USDT in the market. I've used it to send funds to vendors overseas. So how do you think that dynamic plays out? They start phasing out USDT in the United States. Does the US government go after them in other jurisdictions, or it doesn't matter because you have USAT here? It seems like a very tricky situation.
Oh, I imagine so. I imagine these are the conversations that they're having right now internally. I do not know exactly how they're going to, try to comply here. And again, we're still working on the OCC, FDIC regs that come from the Genius Act.
Sure.
So there's going to be still a couple more months, if not years, to get those rules in place, and that's probably where we're going to see more of UST not being utilized as much in the United States, or maybe barred completely, whereas USAT or others are going to come in to fill that need or gap. So we'll see what happens. But again, even though the Genius Act is signed into law, technically, there's still more regulatory implementation stuff that takes a couple months. So I'm sure the runway is still pretty far out, but Tether's thinking far ahead here. It seems like to make sure that there's no doubt whatsoever that they're in compliance.
Sure. Now you mentioned Wintermute being in the UK, or excuse me, in Europe. And that you got the EU MiCA regulations. Tether also had issues there. Tell us about the dynamic you're seeing there. Is it very similar to the United States?
It is actually. So we're in the UK, especially. I would say it's probably the worst right now, and we're seeing a lot. There's some rumors going around because an FT article is talking about how they're going to limit individuals and corporations from holding stable coins.
Wow!
I had a call yesterday. I don't think that's happening. At least we've seen no official word yet, but it's an FT article saying that this is coming down the pipeline. So I'll hold my judgment until I see it. But if that is true, majorly concerning. And there's a lot of major other rules and regulations the UK is starting to work on that are pretty concerning, especially more on the privacy side of things. And so we'll see how these all play out. But overall, my job is a little full because the U.S. There's a lot of stuff happening in the U.S., but the U.K. is incredibly important. We're seeing a lot of issues there as well. So, in the EU, MiCA it wasn't perfect by any means, but it was something. And of course, they were the first movers, and everyone's playing catch up here. So it remains to be seen if the other jurisdictions are going to jump ahead. But also, if you're going to jump ahead and be ahead of the EU, you got to have some pretty clear rules, as well as rules that the industry can work with here, and that's going to be really important in the next couple of weeks.
I had a brain fart moment because I was thinking the UK was still part of the EU, but they're obviously not.
These days.
So I wonder if do they have their own version of the MiCA? Or they still to be determined on that?
They're still working on some consultation papers right now. So they just did one for stablecoins. This consultation paper is kind of like the regulatory rulemaking process. And so they're doing some for consumer protection, safeguarding, custody, and several others are in the works right now. So it's lengthy. It's a little different than the United States. Still wrapping my head around it, but it's very, very active. And we'll see kind of what happens with the firms that are in the UK right now, because there is still a lot of concern of are we going to be still based in the UK after these rules get in place, or we're going to be going elsewhere? It's not that hard. We've seen the US be a lot more open. And to your point, that's where Wintermute's been launching here. We've seen Tether come back to the United States. So, we're excited to see kind of what happens internationally, and if that is a boon for the United States, if these rules are more adverse.
I mean, I can't believe the UK is going that draconian. You can't hold stable coins? What?
Yeah, so it's crazy. I think it was $20,000 or something to that effect. Again, don't quote me here.
Yeah.
Again, also, I'm still waiting to see the official notice, but if that is true, it's very concerning.
Yeah, because at the same time, it doesn't seem smart, because if you're thinking about currencies and what the United States is doing right now with the US dollar-backed stablecoins, you want people to hold more of your currency, right?
You would think. You would think. But the UK operates a little differently here, and of course, still a lot of questions being worked out in the United States. I think a lot of folks also look at the United States as a leader here. So if the United States moves first in the market structure stuff and sets a tone, maybe they'll course correct the other countries. But of course, there's a huge boon right now to see who can get the crypto companies to come domicile onshore. We saw El Salvador been doing that for years. United States is back in the mix, but there are others that are trying to lose that fight, and it seems like they're trying to lose it on purpose.
Oh my gosh, so wild. What are your thoughts on these digital asset treasury companies? A lot of them are launching, not just in the United States, but globally, buying tons of assets. It feels like it's bullish, it's great, but it feels a bit of a bubble forming. I mean,
if you and I've been in crypto long enough, it's when everything seems too good to be true, or a lot of folks get in at the last second, then you just naturally have those red flags that come up in your mind. So, and I think it's for a lot of the OGs of crypto, that's probably what we're experiencing. We've been through ICOs, we've been through NFTs, we've seen a lot of these kind of more red flags issues sometimes. And overall, look, it's exciting to see the treasury companies kind of more organized in DC. So, credit to the digital chamber for bringing a lot of those folks together and the other trades as well. But at the same time, treasury companies have come up as concerns for especially Democrats during the market structure bill. And I think we're seeing a lot of the crypto skeptics just waiting for one of these major companies to go under, or to DPEG or what have you, and they're just going to jump on it. And that's what we're telling folks in DC. It's hey, you might not like all elements of a market structure bill, but trust me, when a market failure happens or there is a course correction, that's a lot harder to play defense on. And candidly, the entire conversation changes. And FTX, we have been through that. It has did a huge damage. But Three Arrows, same thing. Terra, same thing. And there is a regulatory snapback always when there's a market failure. So we'll see what happens on that front. But overall, we're monitoring it cautiously optimistic, and hopefully nothing happens. But the farther down we go down those, the top 10 tokens, and we get kind of more in the 10, 20, 30, 40 range, there's a lot of concern, but DC has taken notice. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And my hope is that there's some balance, because you have BlackRock and these companies that are here, where there's a lot of holding in the ETFs, and they, you don't have to worry about custody, or that they don't have the funds, or they're commingling, so hopefully that helps dampen some of the volatility in the bear market.
You would hope so. So, and again, these are, household trusted names here. So that is there's some upside here, but of course,
markets are cyclical.
And there are always some people who will try to skirt the rules or skirt the code, and that's where everyone else pays for it.
We can't help ourselves, Ron.
Crypto eats its own tail. It's tail as old as time.
Yeah, we did in the .com boom, the real estate bubble, even before that, right?
Yep.
1929. Gensler, I'm hearing this man deleted text before he ran out the SEC. How is this happening, Ron?
I mean, that was shocking. I am sure the Oversight Committee in Congress is going to have a field day with this, because there's a lot of questions here. There's a lot of questions on transparency at all with that SEC and during his tenure. We saw a lot of SEC employees. Some, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle they were on. There's a lot of grumblings with the employees of how Gensler ran the SEC, and we saw a huge exodus of staff there during his tenure as well. So this just adds to the laundry list. But yeah, in terms of transparency from a regulator, it's really concerning. There were rumors going in DC for quite some time that he was using Signal to communicate. I don't know if that's true or not. But we saw Signals kind of backfire in this administration sometimes. So regardless, it's not a good one to see. It's very concerning, to say the least. I'm glad folks like Coinbase are jumping on it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Congress is going to have some questions here, because that is very concerning. The transparency should be there for a financial regulator, and we're just not getting it. And in fact, it seems like we're getting the opposite. We're seeing some cover up here, potentially.
And Ron, I mean, look, I know we're speculating a bit, but the timing, right? The time period of when those texts were deleted with the FTX crash leading into Operation Choke Point 2.0, it automatically leads to some collusion with Elizabeth Warren and much more, right?
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of questions. And again, we don't know who these texts were with. I mean, maybe there's nothing there. But overall, we saw the actions that were coming out, and there was definitely had to be conversations that were happening behind the scenes. Unfortunately, it seems like we're not going to know what those conversations were, and that's typically not how you run a financial regulatory body, but I'm sure Congress will have plenty of questions and oversight questions on that front.
Hard question for you. Do you think anything happens to Gensler from an accountability standpoint?
Typically these are just they're more of a dog and pony show. This is a way to bring in the opposite side and grill them and say, hey, of course they usually time around the election and saying, like, do you want to bring this back again? So that's how the usual politics would work here. But overall, there's the market reactions too, and we've seen several companies saying, I will not hire folks who worked underneath Gensler or Gensler himself or any firm that hires his subordinates. And again, there's different views of if that's should be okay or not, but that's how the market's been reacting. And that's how some folks, they felt very slighted, and rightfully so, by the SEC's actions, especially Gensler's. And it's their prerogative to make that decision, but there are adverse effects for him probably outside of politics.
Try not to get too frustrated or depressed about these things, Ron, because it's very frustrating.
To say the least.
Yeah.
But hey, that's the upside of this new administration. It's been the most transparent sense, and
yes.
It has been, again, just night and day, and it's been so helpful just to have that versus just not having that.
Right.
And we're still waiting for some of the rules and regulations, but at least the dialogue is there, and they are very eager to engage. And props to the Crypto Task Force and Paul Atkins and his team. Like it's so different than it used to be.
Absolutely. I think you said it right. Night and day. We see who the SEC is meeting with, what they're discussing. And it's like, that should be how it was forever. Or, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly. And it's kind of nice. Take the tokenization example. We're seeing the SEC is posting every single meeting they're doing. They're posting every single comment letter they're doing. Wintermute had a comment letter submitted actually 2 weeks ago. And we've had conversations, like I mentioned earlier, with the SEC and continuing going forward. But we're seeing folks like Citadel, they're being public about their opinion, but they're saying, hey, we don't want tokenized equities. But at least there's that transparency nature where we're seeing now, hey, Robinhood, Coinbase, Wintermute, several others are in the opposite camp. And so it's see with NASDAQ. So that kind of transparency is good because we want that dialogue to happen in the public rather than behind closed doors or closed doors, those texts happen to get deleted, years down the road. So
absolutely. Man, this guy Gensler really, really gets me upset. But anyway, I digress, Ron. A big update that I think seems it would have impact on future guidance from the SEC was the wrapping up of the SEC versus Ripple case. Because this was this dark cloud hanging over, like, how are they going to treat this? What are your thoughts on that wrapping up, and how do you think that influences the Clarity Act and much more?
100%. A lot of the times the SEC was looking, we saw a lot of these cases either get dropped or they get more of a stay position from the SEC perspective. I know there's other cases like this Roman Storm case that other agencies are pursuing. But at least for the SEC, we've seen a lot of those cases dropped early, and they were saying, hey, for us to do rulemaking, for us to give guidance to the industry, we need to have clear the deck, and we need to also just show here is some of our official positions without conflicting some of the current court cases that are happening right now. So again, you don't want one judge to decide one thing, and that completely is counter to what the SEC goals are underneath this new administration. So they cleaned the deck, it seemed like, and that helped out a lot for more of like things like liquid staking guidance. That's huge. Things like meme coins not being securities. That's huge. So these are the kind of things that they needed to do in the early process to now seeing the results on the regulatory side. So overall, like the Ripple one was kind of the last big one out there, and it seems like, and that's really good to see that kind of wrapped up. And that's been a huge saga for years on this front. And now we're kind of seeing, I mean, Ripple's XRP is still kicking, doing pretty dang well, even after the all the ups and downs it's been through. And we're now hopefully getting some more clarity from Congress and the regulators. So it's all smooth sailing. Hopefully, I'm sure there'll be some choppy waters, but overall, it's looking a lot more optimistic than it was before.
Yeah, I know a lot of folks are waiting for the additional altcoin ETFs to be approved, and a deadline's coming up in October. I'm going to talk to Hester Peirce next week, so let's see what we can get, information we can get. Hopefully they approve the additional altcoin ETFs.
It seems so. I mean, at least everything's been going in positive. We've seen some corrections from the ETF issuers, so fingers crossed. But overall, it's looking a lot more positive than it was 2 years ago. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited. And hopefully they get this Clarity Act through, man. All right, Ron. I'm going to wrap it up with a fun question here. If you weren't working in the crypto industry, what do you think you might be doing?
Oh, dang, that's tough. I used to do campaigns back in the day. It does suck your soul. It's like a really hard job. But so it's like, working on, in politics and crypto. Honestly, I think I would be probably back in the government, maybe a little bit. I do miss my Hill days. Sure. I didn't love covering crypto, healthcare, tax, and trade, and energy policy all underneath one roof. But overall, it's a really cool experience. It's like, everyone's kind of young and really energetic, and it's politics. Just how crypto changes every day, it changes by the hour over there too. So I definitely miss Capitol Hill, but overall, I love my job. I love everything I've done, and you especially, we've seen how far this industry has grown, and like how we are sitting here today. It's pretty exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what happens next, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it for years to come.
Brian, they got to make sure they put your name, to etch your name in the crypto history books, because you were working on the first version of a market structure bill with Warren Davidson back in the day, man.
It's a group effort. It's a lot of good folks, and actually kind of funny. Some of those folks I worked with, like on the staff side, because back then, all the members of Congress thought it was too complicated, so they kicked it over to the 25-year-old staffer. Sure. Those 25-year-old staffers are now either at the SEC or they're in the industry now, or they're in the Senate, and it's like kind of cool to see how far we've come. And now that the members care about it. So I'm excited for it, but hopefully it's a movie one day. I think I got plenty of war stories to date with the Libra on this stuff, and I'm sure I got plenty of content to make it fun.
Directors and PR people out there, this is demand to get, or you got to write a book, Ron.
I'm not even sure if anyone wants to read my book, but we'll see. I got plenty of stuff for y'all.
I'll help promote that book for you.
Hey,
man.
There we go.
Thank you so much, Ron.
Hey, thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.